ask yourself, what deters me most from having a dedicated prayer life? Last time we talked about sin and the sin cycle and how sin creates this catch-22 of getting further and further from God, keeping us from wanting to pray in the first place when we really need to. We talked about the sin cycle being seeing and then desiring and then taking. We talked about how fasting can break that dangerous sin cycle. Sin probably prevents you from praying. We need to break that so we can grow closer to God. Today we're talking about reason number 2 why I propose maybe you, like me, don't have a dedicated prayer life. And that is busyness. Sin seems a whole lot worse, a whole lot more dangerous than busyness. But we're going to see today that busyness is a very, very effective tool of the devil. Because if we are so busy all the time, often the first thing to go in our schedule will be time to pray. Similarly, if you are busy all the time, you are probably going to say, I can't fast. I've got places to be. People need me. I need to be fueled. But today I propose to you fasting being the antidote to busyness. Fasting breaks the dangerous cycle of busyness, and it does more than just focus us on God for a couple of hours. That was a major theme last time. Fasting is not so we take a break from sinning for one day. Rather, fasting was meant to break a sin cycle so that even when we are not fasting, we've retrained our brains. Fasting is not meant to just be the one-time break from being busy. Rather, it's meant to be an antidote. It stops us in our tracks, refocuses us back on God. Many of those things we are busy with, many people here are very busy. Many of those things are not inherently sinful, but when they consume our attention, they keep us from feasting on the better part that Herman read for us. So we will see what this looks like through the simple, well-remembered story of Mary and Martha in Luke 10. If you're there, stay there. That's where we will be today as we talk about fasting, the antidote to busyness. A couple things in welcoming. First of all, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you're a guest, we are so grateful that you are here. In echoing what Daniel said, first of all, that was so kind. Thank you, Daniel. But also the teaching that happens here is so important. From the pulpit, yes, but also from all the various classrooms you see here. Teaching is important, and so this workshop is going to happen next Sunday afternoon. Go get lunch and then come back here. There will be segments for men and women, men teaching men, women teaching women. This is going to be to help us and equip us to teach. If you don't think I'm talking to you right now, I am. You can teach. And so by way of introduction, we'll share 2 silly pictures of Will. There's one. There's me, not to be confused with Goliath. I'm teaching the kids class back in Brandon, Florida. Before I ever pursued preaching, I was just a member who wanted to sit in the pews. And someone asked me to teach. Said, Will, we need a teacher for the pre-kindergarten class. I said, you got the wrong guy. They said, no, we got the right guy. And someone taught me how to teach and encouraged me to teach. And so there, I'm pretending to be Goliath, right? But that level of teaching kids taught me how to teach and made me realize I want to teach more and more. And then I started pursuing preaching, and I would not be here today talking to all of you if someone had not asked me to teach. All teaching is so important. If you feel like you're not equipped for it or you're not the right person for it, I promise you, you are. Come to that teacher's workshop next Sunday afternoon. A lot of work has been put into it. I'm excited for it. Okay, silly picture number 2 of Will. There's me a couple years ago reading a book called The Screwtape Letters. This was the first book that I voluntarily read. Like, I'd graduated college, I'd done all the things, and people had been telling me to read books all the time, but I just did it for school. Before I started preaching, this was the first book I ever chose to read. It was because the power went out at my house, and I had nothing else to do, and my wife said, read this. The Screwtape Letters. Are people familiar with this book at all? A little bit? Okay, if you want to borrow it, I've got 2 on my shelf, please do. It is a terrifying book, but it is so important for the life of a Christian. C.S. Lewis writes from the perspective of a demon. And in this fictional writing that's based off of spiritual truths, he writes as a demon writing to his nephew. And in this world, the demons are said to be in charge of a patient or a human. And the uncle's concern is that his nephew is losing control and that his human might just end up in the enemy's hands. Of course, he's referring to God in heaven. But in this first chapter, the book opens and Screwtape writes, he says, I'm concerned that you're relying too much on argument, philosophy, and science. Things that we, demons, that we know will just lead people right to God. Instead, Wormwood is his name. Instead, Wormwood, I want you to focus on the realities of life. Make him busy. And as he has a thought about God and faith, before he knows it, it'll be lunchtime, and he'll forget all about it. Busyness is one of the most effective tools of the devil. The Bible is a really big fan of diligence and hard work, but it is not a fan of busying ourselves with the cares of the world. In Luke 10, we'll see this to be true. In other places like Mark 4, the parable of the sower and the seeds, there's this thorny soil that's said to be the thorns that are the joys and the cares of the world that consume the word. Throughout the Bible, being too busy with things of the world, a warning that it can take everything from us. It is easy to see these things, these warnings, as only being against sinful things, like how we desire to break the sin cycle. But the danger of being busy is that we can be busy with things that are good and still have a harmful effect in our walk with God. Jesus' interaction with Mary and Martha teach us this lesson without any confusion. He makes it clear what the better part is. It was read for us in entirety. We'll look back there in Luke 10 throughout. But there's a lot of, I guess you could say, speculation or a lot of theories and explanations about what's going on here with Mary and Martha. It's just a couple of verses for us. But in that, there's a lot of different reasonings or insights that I was reading and learning about as I studied for this lesson that I want to share with all of you. And in those different variations or lessons or nuances, it points us back to busyness and what we need to do, how fasting specifically can be a way for us to recenter our life back on God. If you're looking at Luke 10 there, I'm focused in on verse 41. Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things. It seems kind of harsh, right? She seems to be doing a good thing. Serving is good. And yet Jesus seems kind of harsh with her. Make no mistake, this is not a passage about fasting. That's not what I'm pretending. However, the principles that I want to embody in my own life, I find are right here in this story. Martha's problem was not one of indifference or a lack of zeal or laziness. Her problem was she was too busy. The principle of fasting, however you want to apply it, we talked about it last time like this. The voluntary denial of an otherwise normal function for the sake of intense spiritual activity. We talked about different types of fasting. Food fasting is, fasting 101. That could be for a couple of days. That could be for one meal. However that looks for you, the principle applies and will shape your spiritual life. Maybe food fasting in its entirety is not the best idea for you. What about certain foods? Even just giving up dessert might give you some time to focus back on God, to give something up, sugar, soda, etc. If that's not it for you either, we're just talking about some sort of voluntary abstinence. That could be non-food things like music, TV, or sports, social media, something that makes us say no to something that takes up our time and makes us say yes to time with God. That's what we're talking about here, and we're building off the assumption of Jesus expecting us to fast. We know it's something he expects of us. We know it is something that helps us spend time with God. Today we're talking about how and why we need to do it. So today there's 3 plus a bonus of 3 lessons that we can learn about fasting from Mary and Martha. Remember this, that fasting is a teacher. This is not just like temporary time to be close to God and then give it all up. Fasting should teach us. And here, fasting teaches us to break routines that keep us busy. Maybe in your lifestyle, there just isn't time. There just isn't time with God. Maybe you just have a busy schedule that goes from thing to thing to thing. And again, at the end of the day, we go straight to dinner and then to bed, and then that's it. Now, I understand, however busy your life may be, we can always be living for God. At our workplace, in the home, wherever we are, yes, that is true and that is great. However, today we're talking about time intentionally spent with God. Time in the Word, time in prayer, time with God's people. Maybe you look at your schedule this week and you say, there's no time for this. What am I supposed to do? If my routine keeps me so busy, something's going to have to break. There are realities of life. I'm not telling you to quit your job. I'm not telling you to stop feeding your kids. That's not the lesson. But fasting brings in a variable that we can control. And that's why I like it so much. You can imagine how Martha feels as she's serving, right? She's serving and she exclaims what's going on. It doesn't say the exact type of serving she's doing, but you can imagine it has something to do with food, household work, and she might say something like, Jesus, what do you want us to do here? Not eat? To which Jesus, I think, would say, yes, yes, don't eat. Give that up. If that's what's getting in the way between you and the good thing, Jesus says, yeah, don't eat. There is something better to feast on than food. There's something better to take part in than our usual routines, no matter how necessary they seem. In verse 40, Martha is distracted, is what my Bible says. And typically we think of distraction as bad things, like daydreaming or doom scrolling, or even worse, distracted with sin and temptation. Distraction sounds bad. But here she is distracted with serving. Doesn't seem right. Serving seems like a good thing to be focused on. Yet even good things, whatever good things you feel you are busy with, good things can deter us from a dedicated prayer life and from time with God. Distracted, I think, is an interesting word. In verse 41, there are more interesting words to me. We were talking about this back in the Did He Really Mean It class about the word worried. Merimnao, or something like that, is the word that we see in the New Testament that is just defined as to be anxious or to worry. We see that in Matthew 6:25 is what we were talking about back there. Do not worry about your life. That's one maybe we're familiar with, and you can understand how they come to the translation there. Your Bible might say something similar, or troubled is the next word that my Bible has. This was the word that I found really interesting. Whenever there's a Greek word that adds nuance, I always like to share that. So check this out. The word that's translated as troubled there, worried and troubled is what my Bible says, is defined as to make a noise, to cause an uproar, or to disturb. And in Matthew 9, Jesus is in someone's house with flute players and wailing and a crowd and commotion. That same word is used to describe the commotion. Jesus is saying to Martha, Martha, there's too much noise. It's too loud. You need to turn it down. So when I consider the point of fasting is not to starve yourself. That's not the point of the sermon. The point is not to earn your forgiveness. That's not the point of fasting. The point of fasting, a major point of fasting, to turn the noise down in your life. Noise can be good. I like noise. Hopefully you like noise. I was just hearing my voice echo as I was talking about noise. Hopefully this noise isn't too much. I like music. That's noise. When I'm in the car, no matter how busy I am, usually the first thing I do is pick my music. Okay? We like music. We want to make sure that we have a good soundtrack to where we're going, even if it's 6 minutes down to the church building. I like noise in my car. Yet, when I approach a left turn, like an unprotected left turn, I don't like those. Like, I'm an adult, but I don't like unprotected left turns. Sometimes you need to focus more. When you're driving, there are certain things that happen, traffic, unprotected left turns, and I say, I need to turn the music down. Like, I got to focus. Now, it's weird that sound would prevent me from focusing on driving. Maybe I'm not a good driver, but I do that. I turn the noise down when I need to focus. Music is good. It's fine. Food is good. There's a place for food. However, if the noise is up in our lives all the time. You don't get that moment to focus, that moment to just be you and God. You don't get the peace that Martha is missing out on. Jesus says, there's too much noise. Turn it down. The point is our routines. Even good routines can keep us from time with God if they are just running the noise up in our lives. Fasting teaches us to take control. Fasting teaches us to break those routines. Food fasting specifically retrains our brain's desires. And so today, like Martha, I'm asking you to break your routine. This was her routine, and it was a good one. She was so used to serving, maybe a lot of you can relate, she was so used to serving, getting home, and going to the kitchen or wherever else and serving, that she missed out on a good thing. She missed out on being at Jesus' feet. Maybe your routines do the same thing. Being here at 9:30, I know is hard for some people. Sometimes that means breaking your routine. Maybe your Saturday night routine is to go to the drive-in movie theater where the movie starts at like midnight because it hasn't gotten dark yet. And then you're out super late and you're like, okay, now I'm tired on Sunday morning. Whatever it has to be on those Saturday nights to break your routine, to be here an hour earlier, do that. Spend time with Jesus at his feet, in his word. Maybe Wednesday nights present a time crunch for you. You get home from work, you go straight to the kitchen, you go, you make the food, you eat the food, and then the day's over. If there's something that could be broken in your schedule, even just one day this week, break that routine that is keeping you from time with God. Whatever that looks like. Maybe it's one meal. Maybe it's one episode you give up. Maybe it's a lot of time in your schedule that's free. I hate to say this one because then my wife will make me do it. But right before bed is a great time to pray. It's like right before bed, you've got all your thoughts for the day and the next day. You think now's a good time to pray. And my routine is to find something funny on my phone. Not bad. It's a fine thing to do. To go, the internet's really funny actually. And you can go on YouTube and find something funny. And then I laugh enough and then I fall asleep. There's nothing bad with that. That's not bad. Laughing's good. But if my routine is so built in that the end of my day ends with laughing and reels and jokes, then I'm never going to find time to pray. Maybe you don't doom scroll like I do. Maybe you have different routines, but there's something in your life that can be broken. Break the routine once this week. Routines are good. Serving is fine. Break the routine once this week. Use that time to be spending with God. Use that time to be part of the better part. Don't let your routines and your distractions keep you from God. Okay, lesson number 2 from fasting. Fasting teaches us to challenge the expectations of busyness. Like I said, as I was reading lots and lots of commentaries and lessons on Mary and Martha, I learned something that maybe a lot of you already knew, but I didn't. I thought it was interesting. The culture for their time was different than ours. This is not the interesting part. Some people like to pretend that Mary was sitting adoringly at Jesus, and Martha's jealous of that. Okay, that is not it. That's not what's going on here. Rather, what is described of Mary is she's sitting at Jesus' feet. In their time and culture, this was disciple language. You might remember as Paul describes how much of a Jew he was, how studied he was in their world. He says, I sat at the feet of Gamaliel, the rabbi. Sitting at the feet of someone means you were their disciple. That was a big deal, and that's how Mary is described here, sitting at the feet of Jesus as a disciple. In this culture, however, that sort of language, that sort of posture, that sort of learning was for men. That's just the way it was. Their society was separated. That was more of a men thing to do, and women were expected to do what Martha was doing. That was their culture. N.T. Wright describes it like this. He says, in that culture, in many parts of the world to this day, houses were divided into male space and female space. N.T. Wright is from England. That's not a typo there. Female space and male and female roles were strictly demarcated as well. Mary had crossed an invisible but very important boundary within the house and another equally important boundary within the social world. That was the barrier between Mary and Martha and Jesus. Mary breaks it. Martha chooses not to. She points out this clear cultural barrier that probably should not have been done. She says, Jesus, do you not see what's going on? Probably expecting Jesus to say, like, good point, like, get back in the kitchen, Mary. But that's not what Jesus says. The gospel changes everything, even the cultural barriers. The gospel, the word, learning, discipleship, it's for everyone. And now we've got this person who is saying, hey, like, she broke the barrier. She's not supposed to do that. The barriers between us and Jesus today in our culture and our expectations societally don't look like this. I'm sure there are similar examples we could think of, but it's not quite this imposed. Rather, I would propose that the barriers between me and Jesus, the barriers between you and Jesus, are ones that we create and impose on ourselves. It's not male and female oriented as much as it was then, where you wouldn't be allowed to sit at someone's feet. You are. The barriers that are today are ones of busyness. Society, unfortunately, expects us to be busy all the time. Between our 2-day shipping and our 3-second reels, life is moving all the time. And people, those around you, maybe yourself included, expect you to be busy all the time. So our society would say, giving up food, fasting for one day just to have some moments closer to God and to feel your dependence on Him, society would say, that's crazy. To miss out on a Sunday, to miss out on making sales at work, or to miss out on the baseball game in Seattle, our culture would say, that's crazy. To miss out on anything for the sake of worship or spending time with Christians. The expectations are to be busy all the time, and everything is marked urgent. Martha's barrier was society expectations of male and female roles. Ours is society expectation of busyness. And I promise you, if you commit to fasting for one day, just one day, like 12 hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you will be forced to slow down. And in my very limited experience, often if we do not choose to slow down, God will find a way of making sure we slow down. Fasting is our way to choose to slow down. Because if you are fasting, you will learn your dependence on God, so you don't need to produce something every second of every day to be worthy. That's why I struggle with busyness. It's a worth issue. I want to be producing all the time, no matter what. And that's where I find my worth. Fasting will teach us, whether it's society's expectations or our own expectations, our worth comes from God. Consider giving up your busy lifestyle, even just for one day. Make time for fasting. Fasting teaches us not to care about those around us and what they think we should be doing. Instead, prioritize the better part that cannot be taken from us. Okay, we're almost there. Look at verse 42. One thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part which will not be taken away from her. Fasting teaches us the danger of being too busy. If there's a better part, mine says good, Herman said better. If there's a better part for us to take part in, that means that Martha has chosen the worst part. Like there's one that's better, there's one that's worse, and she chose the wrong one. That's dangerous if we can choose wrong. If our distractions, our routines and expectations take priority over worship, prayer, time with Christians, then we have chosen the worst part, and that is dangerous. I heard a cheesy acronym. I know it's cheesy, okay, so I already said that. But I thought it was good. It shows the danger that's here of what being busy is. If our busyness, whatever that is, how good of a thing you're busy with, if it's taking priority over God and His people, time spent in the Word, then being busy is being under Satan's yoke. That's what we talked about in the Screw Tape Letters. That's a really effective tool of Satan. Keep him busy. There are a lot of things to be looking at, a lot of tools of Satan's out there. But because busyness can sound good, we allow ourselves to walk right into that trap, right into that yoke that Satan keeps us under. God offers freedom. It's a major message of the gospel. A lot of times I find myself choosing Satan's yoke. Don't be so busy that you're missing out on the good part. Fasting teaches us that temporary things like food are not the best or better part about life. In fact, temporary things like food, music, any distraction are really dangerous if they are keeping us from time with God. Don't miss the better part. Try fasting. Make no mistake, the answer or the antidote to busyness is not laziness. That is not what Jesus is encouraging here. He's not saying instead be lazy. That's not what he's saying. Instead, he is giving us I am presenting a different antidote. The antidote to busyness is fasting and breaking routines, giving up anything that stands between me and God. You're all probably thinking of something. There's something that exists that prevents you from being as close to God as possible. That's normal. That's part of this life as we go toward heaven where there's zero separation. In this life, there is separation. But a lot of times we choose to think that it's just part of life. It's just my job. It's just my hobby. It's just my friend. And that thing is standing between you and God. And you can almost hear the pity in Jesus' voice as he says, Will, you're worried and troubled about many things. We get worried about the wrong things, and as we choose the worst part, as we choose the dangerous part, there's pity in Jesus' voice. He wants us to choose the better part. The antidote is not laziness. Rather, the antidote, fasting, teaches us to find rest in the better part instead of seeking credit. This is one more hypothesis. There's a lot of filling in the lines that could be said here. But in verse 40, Martha was distracted and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. Maybe she did want the help, but maybe almost childlike. She wanted to be brought out that, hey, it's just me. It's just me. Don't I get a reward for this? Or don't I get some sort of credit for this? When I consider what stands between me and God, when I consider why I let myself worry, why I let myself be distracted, why I busy myself so much, it could be credit. Maybe that was Martha's motivation, but I know that often it is mine. Credit feels good. We're humans. And so here, instead of finding rest in the better part of just getting to sit at the feet of Jesus, instead she's wanting to find rest, find sustenance in credit, and being told she's doing good. I relate to that. The busyness cycle teaches us either to never rest or to find rest in the wrong things, like productivity, or getting credit. But when you take time to fast, giving up something voluntarily for spiritual reasons, you will get your rest and sustenance only from prayer and worship. That's going to be it. Not credit, not earning your way, just time with God. Jesus is inviting her to join her sister at his feet, to rest in his teachings. And instead, I think she might be looking for credit or looking for Jesus to make her sister work with her. She chose work over rest. And I think often we do the same. Whatever that looks like for you, I would encourage you to choose rest. Choose rest because Jesus came to offer us rest. And make no mistake, the effort here from Jesus is not telling us laziness. Instead, the answer is, what do I find rest in? If being here feels like work, and sometimes it is. Our teachers are working 9:30 to 10:15. That's good. But if just being here, if studying your Bible, if being with Christians feels like work instead of rest, then we're missing out on the better part. Jesus is encouraging us, choose the better part. Not laziness, Instead, he wants our serving to flow from time spent with him. You'll remember that service is one of our major key words for this year. Service is good. Don't go home and be like, no thanks, teacher workshop. I don't want to be worried and distracted. Service is good. Be serving. But it's the type of serving that flows from Jesus' feet that we're looking for. If you don't know what that looks like, look around you. There are lots of really good examples of it. We can still serve as long as it is flowing from our time spent with God. And so it made me think of some people who I know who serve not for credit, not just to stay busy or to earn their way, but people who make sure their schedules aren't too busy so they can serve. Do you know that person who you're going to call when something goes wrong? If that person is busy 24/7, they can't help you. There's a lot of people here who I know I can call on in an instant, and I just might. Because I know they have given time to the better things, time to be spent with Christians so they can serve. Last time I talked about my desk drawer that just always opens up, and it was like a silly illustration. Well, Leroy came right up to me right after services and said, "Can I please fix your desk drawer?" And he did. It's fixed now. Not to give him credit, but there's your credit. He's just someone who serves and helps. I'm thinking about Carol. Carol Ritchie just asked, she texted me, she said, "Hey, do you think Carlos might want a bike?" And I said, "Maybe." And then Carlos said, "Yes." And now Carlos uses that bike to go wherever he needs to, including here today. It's just people finding ways they can serve, not for credit, not for earning their way, but just so they can be one with God and be like him. I'm thinking about Sam and Tammy opening up their home. If you were there last week, we're just out there on the porch. They worked hard, they served, but then at the end, it's just rest. We were just talking about God's creation, God's word, God's people, and we were just together. Make no mistake, serving is not to earn our way to heaven. Rather, if we take the antidote first, now serving is just our way of relying on God's strength. Serving is good. Don't do it like Martha. Do it like Jesus. If I can give one more example, a lot of you may know my grandpa passed. So after today, services, we're just going to be heading down to Oregon to be with my grandma. He was that type of guy. He was a servant, not looking for credit, not worried about what other people think. And as I consider his life, I'm reminded of a lot of the good men here who remind me of him, like Mike Clark or Roger Gibson, who just remind me of that servant person who's just willing to do the work, to mow the lawn, to be unseen, not looking for credit, not looking for worth, but just to be part of the better thing that Jesus offers. If you haven't been part of that yet, if you haven't said yes to that better part, if you haven't been baptized into Christ, we have water prepared for you today. We can do that right now. If you have been baptized, but you have let the distractions, the noise, the troubles get in your way, and you've fallen off the path, fallen into sin, fallen into trouble, we are not too busy for you. We will set everything aside. We will baptize you right now. We will pray with you right now. We will cry with you right now. Whatever it is that you need, come talk to me during the song, or find me after the lesson if that's a little too uncomfortable for you. I'll be standing in the back during the announcements. If you need to be baptized, do it today. God offers the better part. Choose it. And for all of us, this week, take the antidote. Stop being so busy. Let's stand and sing our invitation song. In heavenly love